Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Tuesday, August 6th. We are here live. I'm finally back to work. Hopefully I remember how to do this. It is time for the Power Hour. We've got the team here from Pittsburgh Power. We'll hear from them, and then we will get to your calls and questions. It's all about maintenance today. If you have any questions at all about engines, transmissions, modifications, fuel mileage, upgrades, emissions, troubleshooting, you name it, we'll talk about it. All you have to do is pick up the phone and join us. The number to dial 855-950-3835. If you're watching on the live stream, if you're on the app, you can hit that call now button. That'll get you right in here. Looks like calls are already starting to come in, so we're going to get right to it today. This should be Bruce. Bruce, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I am wonderful. I am back from...
Did you enjoy your me time?
I
Did you
did.
enjoy your me time last week?
I did. But you know what I figured out? It's almost impossible for me to just sit. I didn't do much of that. Every time I would sit, I'd get comfortable for a while, and then I'd look around and think, oh, I should go do this. I spent a lot of time working on my vacation, but it was good. I feel good. I had a great time, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to go back yet, but I think I'll get into it here.
Okay. Well, did you know they're closing the west wing of the Louisville facility for next year?
No. Holy cow.
So we're not going to be in the west.
Wow.
So we need to see where FAS is going to move to, where MD Alignment and Fleet Air. But so far, where it looks like we're going to be in the south wing, as close as possible to the north wing.
Got it. Wow.
Now, those newer wings are brighter and more cheerful anyway, so I've wanted to be in there for a long time.
Yeah, it's just interesting over there. We've talked about this before. We've just watched the truck shows either shrink or disappear. And, you know, seeing this one shrink is boy, it's been around a long, long time. 50-some years.
Yeah. Well, you know, whenever the economy is bad, something has to give, and it's the show.
Yeah, and you know, they play. I mean, most companies plan for these things a year ahead of time. You know that. You do all kinds of shows, so they know what their attendance is going to be as far as vendors. So it's kind of the double whammy, I think. You know, the shows have been shrinking anyway, and now we've been in this rough economy for a while. And I'll tell you, I talk about this all the time with the economy. I've never seen a more confusing time, and it's been like this for years now. Yesterday, I was still kind of on vacation, but I've been watching the headlines. I haven't been, watching much news, but I've been scrolling the headlines just to see what's going on. And yesterday was just a mess. I mean, I was shocked at what I was watching, what's going on around the world, what happened to the market yesterday. So it's just a lot of confusing data again. If you look at the data in trucking, it looks like we might be starting to come out of this. Most of the data in trucking right now is actually pretty good, but the economic news we were watching yesterday was not good at all.
Well, there were several small trucking companies that shut down. Let's see, there were more layoffs ahead for freight-related companies across U.S.
Yeah.
1,234 more jobs gone last week.
And that was overall part of the bad economic news that triggered, the market yesterday. Was the jobs report was horrible, way worse than anybody expected, and unemployment went up. And the market didn't react very well to that at all.
Okay, so on to trucking.
Yes.
I, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said I'm going to have to charge people that aren't customers whenever they call in and want to talk in great length. I haven't been able to do that yet, mostly because I feel sorry for some of these people. They've been led astray from either truck dealers or truck mechanics.
Yeah.
And here's one guy owns 20 trucks, and he's got a 379 2004 with the BXSA cert cat that they rebuilt, lowered the compression ratio, which is a good move. They used non-genuine cat parts, so he can't tell me what manifold and what turbo's on it, and not sure who did the ECM, but he's got a really good driver on it that wants to go 72 mile an hour on the cruise out of Florida. He's getting 3.4 mile per gallon.
Ooh. Oh.
And his highest 3.7. Does make 40 pound of boost.
What a mess.
I said, well, let's start. If you can't tell me what turbo, and you can't tell me what manifold, and you can't tell me where the timing is. He was able to tell me it's making 40 pound of boost. And they insist on running at 72 mile an hour on the cruise. And I said, well, let's have him do one day at 65 and one day at 60. That way, let's get a base and see, is this combination of engine that you have and transmission and rears? It's an 18-speed, and they're telling me that it's 336 gears.
Let me make a quick recommendation there, Bruce, before you go on, because here's one of the things I've seen happen. So this driver wants to go 72, and I get it. Drivers get paid by the mile. They don't want to drive slow. He will know in an instant when the boss goes to him and says, hey, we need to run, a day or a week at 65. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to cheat because he doesn't want the numbers to look better. So he won't do it. I'll say he did it. And he'll say, see, it doesn't matter. The only way you can do that and know that it's accurate is you have to govern the truck at that speed for that time.
Yeah, that's true. Or you can download the ECM and see.
Yeah, after the fact, right. That's another idea.
Right. So, but he said, oh, the driver's not willing to do that. I said, all right, so we could talk for the next 24 hours about this truck. So why don't you make an appointment and get it to Pittsburgh? Man, that's a long way, and we don't haul up that way. I said, well, at 3.4 mile per gallon, if I can get you up to 5.5,
it's huge.
It would certainly be worth the trip. And I said, we have similar trucks that are going 7 and 8, not at 72 mile an hour, of course. And so he was supposed to get back to me, and I haven't heard from him yet. That was Friday I spoke with him, and he was supposed to get some numbers and some information for me. Haven't heard. We'll see where that one goes.
My guess is that if I took the numbers for that truck alone, this company probably has no real accounting system where they can see what's really going on for each truck. My guess is if I took that truck, it makes that company zero profit. With that kind of fuel mileage and maintenance costs always go up when fuel costs go up, that there's no way that truck's making a profit in today's world.
Yeah.
The problem with 20 trucks.
No, he said said he's got 150,000 in it, and it's losing him money every day.
Oh, it has to be.
Well, then why don't you just let the driver deadhead it to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, exactly.
Send him up on a Saturday. He'll be here for Monday morning, and
You know, just
might
off the
have
top of
for
my
a day
head,
or
if you
two.
get him from somewhere in the 3s to somewhere in the 5s at today's fuel price, it's got to be $15,000 to $20,000 a year. And when fuel mileage goes up, maintenance costs go down. They always go hand in hand. Here's something else to think about. We have trucks getting 9 all day long now. That's not even a stretch anymore. Like you said, you have trucks just like this doing 7 and 8. 9 isn't even a stretch. Here's something that would make me insane. This driver has to stop 3 times more often to get fuel.
Yeah,
Imagine that. 3 times more often you
right.
got to go through that hassle of getting fuel.
And I had a call from a friend of 11 years ago from one of the snowmobile conferences. He's with a company in Utah that has over 200 pieces of equipment plagued with emission problems. And he's tried to talk to the owner about the catalyst. And they do not have their own tank. They buy from Flying J every day. Their trucks all run local, so they fuel every day. And I asked him, I said, would you be willing if we were to get 4-ounce glass jars or 5-ounce or 6-ounce? And would you be willing to fill up 200 of those a day to give to the driver? Because let's say on average they're buying 75 gallons. And that would be 3 ounces of the max mileage catalyst. All the driver has to do is dump that in.
Yeah.
He said, I would be willing to do that for this company.
Interesting.
And I put a call into the owner, told him who I was, what we do. Never called me back. I'm going to try him again.
Speaking of people from your past, Bruce, I actually got a message online from a former driver of mine going all the way back to Spartan Express, the first company I ever put a truck on with.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He's on the line right now?
No, he messaged me online. He just sent me a message.
Oh,
and
okay.
Said, and he wasn't even sure. He said, "Hey, I used to work for Kevin Rutherford back in the '80s, you know, and I drove for Spartan Express and RPS. So he must have been." And I was trying to think. I didn't have that many drivers that worked for both those companies because I had trucks at both places, but my drivers usually didn't move from one to the other. So I was trying to think. It could only be a couple of people. I'm still not coming up with it, but I just thought that was crazy that he found me.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I've had people come by in the shop and say, you used to work on my father's truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd say, how's Dad doing? Oh, we lost him 10, 15, 20 years ago.
And this goes a ways back, but I had somebody who messaged me online and said that he used to work with my dad as a driver.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Means we've been around a long time.
Been around a while.
Hopefully
that's for
we
sure.
can continue.
Yeah, that's right. What else you got today?
I used to tell myself years ago I'm going to retire on or before age 76. Well, February 12th, I'll be 76.
You don't sound like you're anywhere near retiring.
Okay. All right. Eric has a lot to talk about on what's going on in the shop. So.
All right. Let's hear from those guys. Eric, Leroy, good morning.
What up? Good morning, Kevin.
Is he in the other room again? Or is he laying over on the couch somewhere?
He's here. He's actually awake too.
Oh. All right. So who's going first this morning?
I'm going to go first.
All
I'm going
right.
to take the lead here. We got a bunch of stuff in the shop again. Got a Volvo cleanings, like the DPF cleanings. I got Freightliners. I got Kenworths, Western Stars, DPF for a Ford 750, all kinds of stuff. But one thing we are doing right now is a couple troubleshooting ones I want to talk about that was kind of different, that other shops kind of missed this. We have a 2019 Freightliner Cascadian here with a DD15 that was at multiple shops. I'm going to say at least 2 or 3 that I know of. It was about 75 miles from our shop, and it literally wouldn't move. So the gentleman had it towed in here about a week ago, and we looked at it and pulled it in the shop. It had codes for high DPF pressure. Now he just had an aftermarket DPF or one box, I should say, installed in this truck. And I wanted to talk a little highlight on what Bruce said a little earlier about the OEM parts. This was an aftermarket one box. I don't want to mention any names, but it was a day and a half old and completely plugged up with carbon and soot when we pulled it apart. So we pulled it out, looked at it, didn't see any kind of wet substrates or anything, just it was really, really packed. Sent it across the street, did our DPF alternatives cleaning for the filters and DOC. And when we flowed it, it actually flowed under what factory Detroit spec would be on the DPF filters. And I'm just going to throw some numbers out there because I think it was around like a 2.3 or 2.4 is the benchmark or baseline for the factory filters. This one came in at like a 2.1. Normally, that would tell me that there's a hole inside the filter that you just can't see. It's flowing too much air. A lot of people say, well, no, you want the most air through it. No, you actually need some kind of restriction air because that tells you that the substrate material is still intact. So we reached out to the company and he said, no, it's fine. We put it back in. We're doing some more testing on it right now to see what's going on. I'm afraid it might be some mechanical issues, though. I think there might be something coming through the turbo. We're going to probably end up removing the turbo and looking around in there. But when you're shopping for parts, be aware that sometimes the cheapest isn't always the best. If you find a good reputable company, it's less money than OEM. Hey, that's great. But if you're buying something just based off of price, be careful.
Yeah.
I've seen this happen more than once. The other one was kind of an odd one. Local trucking company over here, Ron Gross Incorporated, kind of a family tie with me because they're actually the company that bought out my grandfather back in 84, 3, somewhere there. It was in the early 80s that my grandfather had a couple trucking companies. They pretty much run a lot of Freightliners. They ran a lot of gliders over the years. And this was one of their older gliders. It's a 2019 Coronado with a 12.7 that had intermittent issues with the Jake. They tried swapping ECMs, still there. They tried some other stuff, still there, but it was used parts they were swapping around. So they brought it in, and we have it's technically a used ECM, but it's still brand new that we use for testing every once in a while. We put our ECM on it, still did it. We tried the wiring harness, still did it. So Rock was pulling the valve cover off and happened to notice that the Jake solenoid had a bent down pin terminal where the plug goes on for the wire. And when you engage the Jakes, sometimes it would make continuity with the ground and it would actually arc the signal off. And that's where it was. Somebody had put their hand on top of there when they were getting in and out of the chassis and bent the wire down.
Wow.
So this guy pulled his hair out for months. He's had this
bet.
truck in I don't know how many different shops. And it just, sometimes you got to slow down, just take a look around, take everything in, run it through your head. What's going on? What would cause this? How does this affect X, Y, and Z? And that's usually why we're busy. It's because we do a lot of this stuff. One other thing I had
real
was
quick, while you were talking about that, I don't think you were on the show when we had talked about this, but Leroy, you have that book about troubleshooting, right?
Yeah, I sure do.
Did you share that with Eric?
I don't know if he knows how to read.
Are you hoarding information?
I am not. I gave it to Alex to read. I don't know if he made it all the way through, but I think he read most of it and then gave it back to me.
Yeah.
But
Eric,
yeah,
you would enjoy
Eric
that book.
I do. There's a bunch of books I need to read. I just got to find the time to do it.
Yeah, this one's about how to troubleshoot anything. And it's just a really interesting way that he presents. And it's not how to troubleshoot anything specific. It's how to troubleshoot anything in general.
The art of.
Yeah. Yeah. And he uses the example of finding a wolf in the wild. Yeah.
I will definitely.
Yeah. And it's a short book. It's not that long at all.
That's good. That's even better for me.
Yeah,
Give you a library card.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was I had a gentleman call in the other day about the fuel pumps on the X15s, and he was really determined that they were bad. They were faulty from the factory, and that is absolute false. We've been a Cummins dealer since 1977, and I'm sure that most of you folks out there know that. Cummins did have an issue with their fuel pumps in 2012 and early 13s where they put ceramic plungers in them. Most of those have already been recalled and changed out to high carbon steel. But the newer X15 platform is a completely different system than the older ones. I mean, they've done a lot of upgraded parts and stuff to them, because when you get on Cummins to look up a fuel pump part number, there's probably about 6 or 7 different super sessions of it. And that just shows you how much R&D they're putting into these products and making them and revamping them every single day to make them better and more dependable. So a lot of times people will hear something from one driver and kind of take that for gospel. Or sometimes you just need to do the homework and reach out and do your own research and say, hey, look, is this true or not? It comes down to everything in life. You wouldn't just vote for somebody because of one person's hearsay. You want to do your own research and make your own good judgment call. But I just wanted to clear the air on that one a little bit.
Got it. All right.
And that's all I have.
All right. Good stuff. Leroy, what's on your mind this morning?
Eric brought up about that Ronald Gross Jake issue, and it's kind of funny that you brought up the Wolf in Siberia book, because I had made a mistake when troubleshooting that one.
What?
I know, because I made some assumptions.
It is Tuesday, August 6th, 11:21 a.m.
Oh no, I make a lot of mistakes. But so he had just brought the ECM to me before the truck and said this ECM, the Jakes don't work. I was like, okay, right. So he popped the lid open, and the thing is flooded with oil inside. Just like,
wow,
you can like move it around. It's
like that bus we had from West Virginia.
It had a lot of oil in it, right? And then once I cleaned all that up, there's trace, which is like the little piece of copper that connects the output of the transistor to the pin for the output of the ECM. That trace was broken. So I had sort of made this little jumper wire out of a piece of copper tape that connected the broken trace back together. And I was like, okay, I can see why the S3 output for the Jakes don't work. It's this, right? So he takes it. He says, well, it worked for 5 minutes and now they don't work anymore. I was like, oh, well, I guess I failed. So he brings the ECM back again with the truck, and I take the ECM lid back off to see if something like my repair failed or something like that. And another part of the trace was actually broken still. And this is all because of corrosion from the oil that was in there. It like ate away the conformal coating and then started to go after the copper that was in there. So I put in additional repair.
What is a trace?
Trace is a small piece of copper that's part of the PCB board, the printed circuit board, that connects pins from transistors to outputs or transistors to other chips. It's basically just a flat piece of copper that they connect pieces inside with.
You'd never put like corrosion and oil together in my mind like that. But then when you explain it with the epoxy or whatever kind of coating they put on there for protection, they are not petroleum protected. Petroleum-based products will eat away at stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a chemist. I don't know the exact mechanism, so it might not be corrosion. I may be, again, making a mistake on that.
Well,
but I can tell you
point.
that ECM got oil in it. ECM had problems.
ECM bad.
Because you see.
Right, so let me ask you another question. Inside the ECMs, a lot of times, maybe I'm thinking if it's a trace, I'll see several little copper wires, like 6 or 8 or 10 of them in one thing that's maybe a 1/4 inch wide or a 1/2 inch wide. Is that a trace?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
So one of those small wires in that trace was bad, but not the whole group was bad.
Right. It was just it's funny enough, where they put the power transistor that drives the Jake solenoid is sort of right near the edge. And you could tell, oh, it's broke from here to there. It wasn't like I had to sift through the entire board to figure out where that was. They place it close to the output. And after I sprayed everything out, it took like 2 cans of contact cleaner to get this thing cleaned.
Wow.
And once I got it all sprayed and everything, I go over it with a soft nylon brush. It's like softer than a toothbrush to kind of clean out everything because yeah, oil's not necessarily conductive, but if you have things that are floating in the oil, then it's conductive. It's
Yeah.
like water's not conductive, but you put salt in it, now it conducts electricity. Well, you have all these iron and other things that are in oils that make it conductive. So you kind of have to go around with this little nylon brush and clean out all the little pieces because stuff can get stuck in there. Um, so once I cleaned everything up, while I was going over with the brush, I actually ripped part of the trace too. I was like, oh, well, that's where the problem is. This makes an easy repair. So I had done 2 ECM repairs on it. And it's one of those things where it was obviously the ECM had an issue because it had an issue on our bench tester. I was like, oh, this is what's wrong with the truck. I fixed my trace, put it back on the thing. He's good to go. When he comes back again and he says it's still broke, I was like, okay, well, maybe there's something deeper wrong with it. It's not just a trace. Maybe that was just part of the problem and not the whole problem. And we put a test ECM on it, and it worked for like a second. Like it worked, hit the jakes twice, and then stopped working. So that's when we figured out that it had that screw terminal that was hitting, and then we had things that were unplugged, and it was just a whole thing. But yeah, so it was a mistake that I assumed that was going to fix it, but also it kind of goes with the point. I don't know if that was in that book. I'm pretty sure it is, but it's at least something I've learned and I say a lot is it's a problem, but it may not be the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
You can have compound problems.
Yeah.
It's this and that. The injectors were bad, but also the turbo is also stuck. Like we had that one that wouldn't start a couple months ago. Why doesn't it start? Well, it's the injectors and the turbo. Or you can have things where, like I said, this is a problem. The trace is stuck, but also the battery exploded. Those are 2 separate things that cause 2 separate issues.
You have to fix them one at a time.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to elaborate on too, and I don't know if we promote this enough, is the ECM repairs. We do really extensive repairs on these rust corrosions, the Detroit battery changes on them. But I'm going to give a shout out to Barry Gross from Ron Gross. When he brings an ECM in, it's not dripping with oil. It's not covered in grease. It's fairly clean.
Well, you should tell him about that other one he brought me because it was dripping in oil.
Well, now you do.
Inside and out.
But he does detailed notes on the back of the ECM case, which I love. He'll write on a paint pen or with a paint pen on the back of the ECM and say exactly what it's doing, how it's working, when it does it. It makes it so much easier for us.
We actually fixed 2 ECMs from this week. There was this one and then another one with a memory failure, which is a pretty straightforward process of just unsoldering the memory chip from the board and installing a new one.
All right.
We can take this one step further, like this Peterbilt that's a 3.4 mile per gallon. I asked him about the mufflers, and I said, that thing came with catalytic converters. Are they still on there? He said, I think so. So not only could the turbo be too small, the exhaust manifold could be too small, the catalytic converters can be clogged. So there's more than one reason why this Peterbilt's getting 3.4 mile per gallon. And so it's the same way with electrical problems. I mean, how many times do we get a truck where there's multiple problems and not just one? So,
yeah. All right. Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
That's all I have.
All right. Well, we only have one call, which is odd. Maybe I should refresh this to make sure. Sometimes it sticks. Right now, we only have one call, so phone lines are open. We're going to be getting to them in just a minute. I have a story to tell, and then we'll get to some phone calls. So, what's that?
I said once upon a time.
Yes, once upon a time. I was driving out in the country, and I saw an interesting item for sale on the side of the road. It was an international bulldozer, and looks really nice, all fire engine red, just repainted. Somebody did a nice job on it. It's all lettered. It looks old, but I know nothing about these things, so I had no idea how old or how much something like this might be. It's tracked. I mean, it's a bulldozer. So the first thing I did, I almost had to ask the owner of it to tow me out of the ditch. right there, I go down this road every day because it's on the way to our homestead. Lisa pointed it out to me like the first time. She said, do you realize how narrow this road is and how deep those ditches are? She said, if you went off the road, you'd roll over. And I was looking, you're right, they are pretty deep. So I see this bulldozer there on the way out. And I thought on the way back, I want to stop and just take a look at it. So I pull off the road and I'm on his driveway and I can't see the sign. And I'm staring at the bulldozer and the sign that's on it. And the lettering's really small. So I'm creeping forward and I drove right into that ditch. But only my right front wheel went in. The left was still up on the shoulder. And it tipped so hard, the left rear wheel came off the ground. And I thought, I'm going to have to use the bulldozer to get me out of here. Luckily, I put it in four-wheel drive and I was able to back out. That would have been embarrassing. But I'm looking at this thing and I know nothing about these things. So I took a picture of it, even took a picture of the for sale sign with the phone number and everything. And I posted it. I post stuff all the time. If I get 30 to 40 likes on a post, that's a pretty big deal. This thing for me went viral. I had over, like right now we're at 2,500 likes. It's been retweeted like 200 times. I have no idea why. Why did this picture, this stupid bulldozer, go? It's the biggest post I've ever had on X, probably 10 times bigger than the stats on any other post I've ever put up. Like I said, I know nothing about this, but people were posting that this thing starts on gasoline, and then when it warms up, the diesel engine starts. And from what I gather, I just put the picture up on Google. It looks like it might be from the 50s.
Where do you post, Kevin?
Almost, for me, I'm only active on X. But I'm
on X.
Yeah, I probably post 10 to 15 times a day. I mean, I'm on there quite often. So
what is X?
Oh, Twitter.
Twitter.
What used to be Twitter. That's the only place to be because Elon Musk owns it and it's actually free speech. You can say whatever you want. They don't censor or delete you.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I have no idea why the picture of this bulldozer went viral. And when I posted it, just to be funny, I put the picture up and said, somebody talked me out of it. I wasn't really seriously considering it. Although, if it ran really well, I could certainly use it to clear my land. But they only want $5,000 for this thing. And it's beautiful. I mean, somebody did a nice job repainting it, relettering it. But I have a feeling it could be a mechanical nightmare. And the last thing I need in my life is one more thing to work on. But I have a feeling that the guy's going to sell it because, like I said, I put the phone number and everything in there, and it's got a lot of activity.
Did you see, speaking of Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson's review on his pickup truck?
Yes, 1978 Silverado, right? Is that what it was?
Well, Tucker Carlson had one of the Elon's pickup trucks up in Maine. Apparently he used to live up there, traveled up there a lot. And they put it through some tests and drove it through water and had two old boys testing on it and really liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some pretty good reviews. Speaking of which, Tucker Carlson is doing a big tour around the country with different events. And at each stop, he's got a different guest. He's got like Alex Jones at one place. He's going to be in Salt Lake City. And Glenn Beck is the guest, and I have a VIP invitation. One of our other vendors is the major sponsor of that event, so I'm going to get to go to like a pre-event reception with Tucker and Glenn. This is one of our health companies. They're also doing a documentary, so I'm going to be filming some stuff for the documentary while I'm there. So looking forward to it. I think it's sometime in September.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I will report on that. All right. Phone calls are starting to come in. What else we got today? Anything?
Nope.
All right.
Nothing here.
Let's get to it. Let's go to Texas to get started. Richard, welcome.
Hey guys, I called Eric yesterday about an oil sample that I have. I don't know if you got that oil sample right there, Kevin.
I do. Oh,
Yeah, just a heads up on last year, on 2022, my fuel dilution was and we discussed the fuel dilution, but my fuel dilution in 2022 was 4.8, 4.4, 4.1, 5.2, and 5.7, and I had a 5.8 or 9 one of those years. I can't remember if it was 21 or 23. But this fuel dilution here on this last one I got that's in the green now, this is the month that I just started using the flashpoint. So this oil sample here, July 22, from May 24, right after May 24, right after I changed the oil on that oil sample, I started using a flashpoint. But those are brand new injectors, and I've had ever since I put them in.
Wait.
Go ahead.
I want to get the history here. We don't
Go
need
ahead.
to go all the way back to 22. The sample that I'm looking at goes back to August of 23. So I'm just going to start there.
Right.
You're in the high
Yes.
fours, mid to high fours since August of 23. And then all of a sudden we go down
Yes.
to 2.4. And you're telling me the only thing you did was start running flashpoint? I mean, no
That's
new
the only thing I did.
injectors, nothing
Nope.
else changed?
Nope. Nothing was changed.
Now let's go back.
And these are the new injectors.
Hold
Go
on a
ahead.
second, because there's something else I want to go over here, and I would just want to get the timing right. So in May of 24, not this sample, but the one prior to that, May of 24, you had a silicon level of 81. I have to believe the engine was opened up at that point.
It was.
So that's also when you
21
said
and 81
changed the
the
oils.
21 and 81, it was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the 21 and 81 silicon level, the engine was opened up both times.
What did they do? The time when it
the first time in December when it was done, they done a front structure, and the second time they replaced the front main seal because it was started back leaking again.
What engine is this?
And it's a 12.7 Detroit 99 model. And the shop that I had that done the work is the company that I work for. I'm not going to say the name, but I was in their shop about a month or so ago, and I noticed a truck that they was rebuilding the engine on. They got 4 overhead doors. 3 of the overhead doors is open. The engine was opened up and parts was laying all on the table, but nothing was covered up. So they don't have like a specific room that they do the rebuilds in. And it's just, if dust is flying through the shop, dust is getting all in that block and everything. So I'm assuming that this is where a lot of that came from.
Yeah, and I'm not too worried about that. I mean, 81 is really high. Okay. So yeah, we got a lot of dirt in there, and we're down to 21 now. Next oil sample, it'll probably go down again. I hope. We need to keep an eye on that. I hope.
Yeah.
I'm more thinking of the engine was opened up. You change the oil. The next sample, the fuel dilution gets cut in half. Anybody? I can't think of anything they touched when they had the front end opened up that would affect fuel dilution, or is there something?
Did they run the overhead?
I think he did run the overhead. I believe he told me that he did, because the second time he went back into it, I asked him to run the overhead because I didn't think that they done it the first time. And he said that he went back and checked it, but he said that he was almost sure that they ran it the first time because they had to take the jakes off first to get the front structure or something. I forgot what it was that they had to take the jakes off for, but they took those off. And he said that they did run the overhead on it whenever they went in it the first time. So the second time he checked it and made sure everything was in checked and everything.
Yeah, that would definitely contribute to a little bit of fuel dilution. Now yours is at 2.4% in 20,000 miles. So you're only at 1.2% in 10,000. It's very, very
Yeah.
minor. But the Flashpoint does have lubricity additives in it. So whenever you strip diesel fuel of the sulfur, a lot of people think that taking the sulfur out is the bad thing. What happens is the bad stuff that happens to fuel to take lubricity away, and it's actually not. It's the stripping process of taking sulfur out of the fuel is what makes the fuel less lubricity. So by adding the lubricity additives in there, getting your overhead done, with with the Flashpoint getting the overhead, I would think that's probably why it went down so much.
Now
But that's
here's
good. That's a
yeah,
yeah.
I'd be really shocked. It'd be interesting to know if the the Flashpoint did all of this. But here's another confusing factor. So on a Series 60, when it comes to soot, we always shoot for less than 0.1 on soot. I mean, because it's very achievable on a Series 60. We see it all the time, and the engine's tuned and running pretty well when you see that. Um, from the time if they opened this up and did the overhead, and you're not sure, but you were at 0.4 soot on that sample. The next one after they did the overhead, you were at 1.1. If that's all we were talking about,
Right.
I might assume they screwed up the overhead.
How are your air filters
Right.
too?
I got the fleet air filters. I'm due to change the air filters again, but what I've been doing is changing the outside, checking the two on the inside. And I called Fleet Air, and they said that that's okay as long as it's still got plenty of oil on it. So I've been checking the two on the inside, and they're good. But I've been changing the outside filter and redoing it. But about every 2 or 3, depending on what the inside ones look like, I'll change just the outside one. But every 2 or 3, I'll go ahead and do all 3 of them. I do live on a pretty long dirt road also.
Okay. You could have some dirt encapsulated in the oil, in the second and third layers. I have seen that before. And sometimes having too much oil is a bad thing as well. That actually does block airflow, and it acts great as a fly trap for dirt, but it can restrict a little bit of airflow. So that may be what's going on here too. You may have a little bit of imbalance of the air to fuel ratio based off of the fresh air on that side of it. It may not be over fueling. It may just be a little bit lack of air. And again, that could be, when you're setting an overhead, you have tools, but it does take a human touch. It does take the right touch,
Yeah.
some experience with it to set them just right. And we've reset overheads for guys that just paid to have somebody else do them, a week or 2 prior. And I get phone calls a lot saying, my goodness, this thing run different. It's so much more responsive that, the throttle response is there, the power's there. All it is just the touch. I mean, it literally is that much of a finessing act.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of a confusing situation, an oil sample. Fuel dilution went
Yeah,
down,
and
soot went up. I don't know.
yeah, and I've been battling this ever since I put these injectors in 3 years ago. I mean, right after I put them in, the second oil sample, it went down the first one, but the second oil sample, it came back up, and it's been in the mid to low 4s to the, I mean, that 2 5s that I had, that was right about the time that I changed it. But yeah, I've been dealing with this for a long time. I was going to change them out. I was going to change them out this year, but I started using that Flashpoint, and like I say, that's the only thing that I've changed since my last oil sample. And I'm hoping the next oil sample it's going to still be low, and if it is, then I know that that's got to be a contributor of it.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. All right.
Yep. I'll keep y'all posted on it.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard.
Let's go to Pennsylvania. John, welcome.
Hey guys, I was calling, looking at some trucks. I'm gonna buy one. 99, 2001. They got Cummins motors. Question is, what year did they? Some got N14, some got the ISX. What year did they stop making the ISX or the N14, and what year did they start the ISX?
N14 was up to 2002. The ISX came out in 98.
So you could pick either of them. They overlapped.
I think so.
Yes, that's true.
So and then the ISX, it has no emissions on them years, correct?
That's correct. Emissions didn't start until 2003.
So in those years without the emissions, which one are you picking and why?
The Signature 600 ran very well. The only people that had problems with them were people that weren't horsepower type people. Our clients that had high horsepower big cams that bought the Signature 600s, they ran trouble free. People that never had performance and bought them, I think they just beat the dog snot out of them, and they had some head gasket issues.
These aren't 600 signatures.
Okay. I would not be afraid of either one.
Okay. So you wouldn't pay more for one than the other?
No, but the N14 was basically a bulletproof engine. The latter ones, the timing was retarded an extra 10 thousandths per request of our government. But if you set the timing back to where they were in 99 and 2000, they run great. So.
And the ISX, 7 years, they don't have any known issues or nothing?
No, we're not seeing issues. We still have a lot of people running the original ISXs.
Okay. How about rebuilding them? Is one cheaper than the other?
They're about the same right now. The N14 might be a little bit less, but all engines. I'm seeing Caterpillars, Cummins, Detroits. They're all get pretty darn close to each other. But with these two engines you're looking at, they're both going to be pretty much in the same ballpark. The ISX might be just a smidge more, but not by much. Not enough to make a difference.
So, and there's nothing, no problems that I should look for at them?
No.
Okay.
Let's talk about as engines get older and they start to phase out parts. It might be easier to get parts for the ISX than it is for the N14. I know we're having parts issues on the big cams, but so far, how are we doing, Eric, on the N14s? Parts still readily available?
Most of them, yes. The ECMs are no longer available for you to convert to a different CM, which Leroy's had fantastic luck doing that. You have to change the harness in the ECM. They're converting it to a different CPL number, but they're working really well. And it's a modern ECM, so it's kind of a win-win on that one. Other than that, no, injectors are available, water pumps, cylinder heads, rebuild kits, all that stuff. I don't see it, but yeah, what Bruce had said is something that maybe consider. The N14 was built up until 2002, 3-ish, somewhere in there. It's eventually going, all older engines are eventually going to be phased out in one way or another. But they're both solid choices. Honestly, I don't think you can pick a loser out of those two.
Okay. And how about tunes? You have a better tune for one than the other, and they're going to be on drivers who run it. So how high would you tune those for a driver to run?
We have
500.
Yeah,
500.
Mm-hmm.
To the wheel or
good
to the
running,
flywheel?
Good running 500 that's geared properly and has a 13 speed in it would be a great combination.
500 to the wheels?
No, ground.
The ground, okay.
500 to the wheels is 580 to 588 flywheel.
And you can do those
remotely. What's your thoughts on that for a driver?
I think it's a great setup. It's got plenty of power to pull the loads, get excellent fuel mileage, but not enough to really.
500. You're okay with 500 to the ground for a driver?
Yeah, 600 flywheels. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, a responsible driver. You know, if you have floating drivers, you got a couple new guys, you might want to just cut it back a little bit. Like we do a lot of tunes for a local guy here, Paul Smith. He runs 20 to 30 trucks, where we used to pretty much do like a lot of 500 and 600 tunes, flywheels. He liked in the middle, 550. So if there's something that, if you're looking for something special tailored to, absolutely we can accommodate that too. So if 600 you just don't feel right in your gut, maybe it's a little bit too much, we can do a 550. We can make it whatever you want. But generally speaking, 600 flywheel is not enough to do any damage. It seems to be a good, happy program where the drivers stay happy and they don't really abuse the truck. They want to take care of it, because a good running truck, a driver will definitely take care of more than a poor running truck. So sometimes it's better in the long run as an owner of a fleet or a manager to actually go that little bump more, because the guys will actually take care of the truck better.
And
Kevin, Kevin, are you hearing this?
Yes.
My employees actually want to give drivers more horsepower than me. I'm shocked at that.
There you go.
Maybe.
What is the horsepower per pound of boost on both of those, so I can figure out what they're set at now?
On which engine?
Both of them.
No, I got about 16.8 on the N14. Let me do a calculation on the older ISX.
If you want to give me a call, John, with the engine serial numbers, since we're Cummins, I can look it up. I can tell you anything you want to know about those engines.
Okay.
You're at about 20. See, now the Signature 600 was a very, very efficient engine there. It was 20 horsepower per pound. So.
Okay. All right. That's all I got. Thanks for the info.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the call. Let's go to Oklahoma. Paul, welcome.
Howdy.
That's correct. So I decided to go in solidarity with you, Kevin, and I took the week off, but I haven't gone back to work yet, so I took a week and a bit.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm back to
no
work yet or not.
Well, you're here, so
Yeah.
that'll work. Because I didn't. One of the plants I haul out of, they give her a projected volume each week, and there's probably 15 or 20 trucks that go through there throughout the week. And I said, "What's your projected volume for the next week?" And she said, 76 vehicles. I said, "Total?" And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm gonna take a week off."
Yeah.
Because 76 divided by, I talked to one guy and he got 2 vehicles, and he sat overnight to wait for the next day. So he said, "You made a good choice on which week to take off." So
Yeah.
So while I was at home, this story's for Eric mainly. My 7.3 Power Stroke F250.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of years ago, it pumped a whole lot of fuel into the coolant, and it split the header tank open, and everything was meant to be full of coolant, was full of fuel.
Ugh.
And the rear main seal was leaking. I think I did talk to you about it one time. The rear main seal was leaking, and it used oil. So I finally decided to haul it down to the Ford dealer down the road from me. Well, he actually come and got it. So I went down there, told him what I had. Truck's got like 250,000 miles on it. And I said what I was planning on doing, and he says, "Yeah, we can do it." He's like, "Where's the truck at?" And I said, "Oh, about 30 miles at my house." He said, "If we get that truck down here today," and he said, "we get the engine tomorrow," and this is last Tuesday, I think it was. Tuesday or Wednesday. He said, "If we get that truck down here today, get the engine by tomorrow," he said, "you might have your truck back by the weekend." It's like, do what? Well, that didn't happen because the engine didn't get there till the day after. But so a crate engine, new radiator, water pump, all the hoses, everything, new up pipes onto the manifolds and manifold hardware and everything. I haven't got the bill yet, but it's not going to be cheap. But the technician that's working on it, he specializes in the 7.3 engine. And when I went down there the other day, he says, "You made the right move." He said, "I'd spend 20 grand on this pickup truck before I'd go and pay 100 for a new one." So, yeah, so that's what I decided. Well, it's probably going to be close to that, but I should be good for. They might be able to bury me in it. I think, I don't know. So,
Yeah, but at least you know what you have.
yeah, well, like he said, because he asked about. He said, "Oh, is it automatic or manual or four-wheel drive and four-door?" He asked all the questions, and he said, "What kind of condition is it in?" I said, "Well, it's Texas, Oklahoma truck." I said, "It's got surface rust on the frame." I said, "But it don't have any body rust at all." And when he seen it when it got down there, he's like, "Yeah," he said, "You're making a good choice on spending the money on it." And he said, "Because this truck it's 20 plus years old now. It was built in 01. And he said, this truck will last you another 20 years easily." So, yeah. So, no Peterbilt stories today, just 7.3.
Paul, somebody posted something about you on Facebook. Loaded cars on a flatbed trailer crashed down on top of each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm guessing they were off to the LKQ or something, the recycling outfit, because when I load them, we don't actually stack them right on top like that. So, but
these cars were stacked up, what, 3 high with the ratchet binders holding them on?
Yeah, straight over the top of the trunk and the hood and everything. But I think he had like 8 or 9 on there. But I think weight-wise of the load, I think he actually had insufficient straps on there for the weight of the cargo.
What did you call it? What kind of load?
Well, I don't know. That was 2 minutes.
You called it a redneck load.
Oh yeah, redneck. Yeah, can't remember now. I remember the post though, but redneck alive and well. So yeah, but that's not how I do it. Each vehicle sits on its individual deck and it's clearance between. So mine don't touch.
But you see, somebody was thinking about you.
Yeah, quite often I get another one that got posted to me. I got bombarded with it. Probably 20 people sent it to me. Was the car carrier. He had a good load on, a 10-car load, and the pickup truck he had on the back bottom, he had like about a 26-foot bumper pull camper hooked to that, and an oversized sign on the back of it. So he would have been about. He would have been about 110 feet long, I'm thinking, but I'll give him credit for being brave, because that's not something. I guess maybe he drove a road train or something. It's like, hook another one on, we'll be right. So, but I bet he was doing a lot of nighttime trucking, because the DOT had seen him anywhere. He getting pulled over. So, yeah.
There you go.
Yep. So, right, that's all I got.
All right. Phones are light today, so if you want to get in, now would be the time. 855-950-3835, or hit that call now button on your app. We're going to go to Yakima. Jerry,
I have something, Kevin.
Well, we do have a call.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind today?
So this one should be a pretty easy one, given the crew that's in today. I'm a fairly new truck driver. Drive for one of the mega carriers. I got a 22 Freightliner with adaptive cruise, and I was curious if I know that the gas or the fuel pedal is a fly-by-wire. Basically, it's not directly connected, as I understand it, but the brake pedal is directly connected to solenoids and the air system. Is there anything else that activates the brake switch? I mean, the brake lights, like the adaptive cruise. When the adaptive cruise slows you down, or it senses a collision, senses that there may be a collision, will it or or engine braking, will any of that activate the brake lights?
Yes, possibly.
Yeah, really any of those things.
Yeah.
So all of the adaptive cruise, when it slows down, it turns on the brake lights.
Yes.
Yep, it's supposed to.
Oh, I did not know that. That's why I'm just wondering, who going down like that decelerates because somebody pulls in front of me. Okay, cool. I was concerned about that if there was somebody behind me that.
In trucks, I'm not sure when they started doing that with the Jake. My coach is an 07, and my brake lights come on when the Jake comes on in an 07.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Didn't think it was that smart.
So let me ask you guys a question. On adaptive cruise control, like on cars and pickups, when it puts the brakes on, your brake lights probably come on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah, they're really
People
trying to make
behind
it
me
so.
probably thinking this guy's touching his brakes a lot, and I'm really not.
Yeah. A lot of people, I remember when this first started coming out on the trucks, complained about, going down a long grade with your Jake on the whole time, and your brake lights are going to be on the whole time. But that's better than them not coming on. I think it's actually a good idea. If the vehicle's slowing down, the brake lights should come on.
I agree. I try to now. It help me understand this too. The Jake, I've been trained that the Jake is much better to use than your brakes, riding your brakes. Obviously, I'm doing stab braking and stuff like that. But is there any downside to using the Jake going down a long incline, or is that's the way you should do it?
I prefer using the Jake as much as possible on a long hill. Does this truck by chance have disc brakes?
No, it's got drum brakes. I just found out this is the first trailer I'm towing. The trailer actually has disc brakes for some reason. That was a new one for me. Normally, all the trailers that I tow are drum brakes.
You'll see more of it. I mean, if we look at the history of drum brakes to disc brakes, every vehicle on the road made that conversion at some point. Bicycles, even. Disc brakes are far superior. We've had them a while now in the trucking industry. They're great. You don't have to do any of the stab braking and all that stuff with discs. They don't fade the way a drum brake fades. That whole issue of brake fade going down a big hill is not a problem with disc brakes. At the bottom of the hill, even if you get them hot, you're going to have the same braking power you had at the top. You don't lose braking power on a disc brake as it gets hot. But I still prefer the Jake. I mean, when I go down most grades in my coach, whether I'm pulling a trailer or not, I never have to use the foot pedal at all. I mean, on that coach at 40,000 pounds, the Jakes are strong enough that I can just play with the 3 switches and come all the way down the hill, never touch the brakes.
Yeah, I'm towing. It's kind of funny. I'm going down a 6% grade right now, and am using the Jake, and I've had to hit the brake maybe once or three and two the entire time.
Yeah. And now when you've got a setup with drum brakes on the tractor, disc brakes on the trailer, if you were to ride your brakes and get the tractor brakes hard, they would fade, but the trailer wouldn't.
Interesting. All right. I also got one quick question on the health side. Sunflower seeds, are those, would you consider those ketovore, carnivore?
Yeah.
They're pretty much all fat and salt, but I'm just curious, and not that it makes that much difference.
Yeah, which is fine. We do consider nuts and seeds both paleo, so they can't really be carnivore technically. Carnivore is only animal products. Keto,
Oh, yeah.
they could
Yeah.
certainly be keto. One of the things that confuses people is, I would say, sunflower seeds are okay. Be careful you don't overeat them. Nuts and seeds are easy to overeat. They're one of those foods that our body kind of doesn't tell us to stop the way it would with meat or eggs or fish or something else. Even though it's a natural food, it's one of those things that if you're driving and you've got a big bag of them sitting next to you, you will overeat them. And
Yes,
that's one of the
I-
things I warn people about. It's not that I'm going to tell you not to eat sunflower seeds or any kind of seed or nut. Just be careful with nuts and seeds. They're easy to overeat, especially when you're sitting at a desk all day not paying attention, or you're driving all day and you've got them handy. They are high in omega-6, so we want to be cautious of that. We don't want to overdo anything with that much omega-6. The other thing that confuses
Okay.
people is I would tell them that, yeah, sure, sunflower seeds are okay to snack on. Don't overdo it. Sunflower oil is horrible. They'd say, well, why? Well,
Yeah.
it's the way it's processed. Sunflower oil is a seed oil, obviously. I mean, that's the whole point. That's why we started calling these things seed oils, not vegetable oils. They've always tried to misname them as vegetable oils because we think of vegetables as healthy. Well, now we're telling people seeds can be healthy if you don't overdo them, but seed oils are horrible. They now, it looks like they are probably the biggest health issue in our diet. Seed oils, worse than grains.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of reading because I'm just starting into probably a ketovore more right now. I'm easing into carnivore, and yeah, the Big Fat Miracle, that book right now, I'm reading that, or audibling it. I don't know how you would say that, listening to it, and it's very technical for
do you mean
listening to Audible.
Do you mean Big Fat Surprise?
That could be. It's got a picture of a slab of meat and a halo over the top of it.
Big Fat Surprise was written by Nina Teicholz. I've had her on the show. I don't think I've ever heard of a book called Big Fat Miracle.
The Big Fat Surprise.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I've had Nina on the show before. It's
a
good
book. The Big Fat Surprise. That's man. She goes into some detail. It's really rough listening to that and getting the content that, pardon the pun, getting the meat of it while you're driving, because she goes into a lot of great detail, and it's just okay.
Yeah,
kind of like reading the Old Testament books. He begat, he begat, he begat, he. That kind of stuff.
One thing I like about her writing is she really does not have a medical background. She's a journalist, but she does just a fantastic job of just getting to the facts without a lot of, somebody with a medical background is going to have a different approach to it. Two books that I really liked a lot, and I read these early on, and they were both by journalists, not doctors or practitioners or researchers. They were journalists. Nina's book, The Big Fat Surprise, and Gary Taubes, Good Calories, Bad Calories. And Gary has a new book out that I really like now called Rethinking Diabetes. But both of those two write the same way. They are in depth and they are loaded with facts. Not always easy reading, but really good information.
For sure. Hey, would you consider bone broth breaking your fast, breaking the morning fast? So if you eat your dinner at night,
let's just start with
fast
this.
until lunch.
Let's start with this premise so we can stop all the arguing, because I see this all the time. Anything with a calorie technically breaks a fast. A fast is no calories.
Okay.
But we do this a lot. It's like saying I'm carnivore. Well, you're drinking coffee right now, so technically you're not completely carnivore. I mean, really. So there's the
Right.
the literal definition of a word, and then the way we tend to use it. And this is one of those cases. So I tell people,
Okay.
let's not argue about whether my coffee with, 500 calories worth of fat in it is breaking my fast or not, or bone broth. And I
Okay.
might put butter and mind fuel in my bone broth too. Is it breaking the fast? Yes. If we want to be technical, you broke the fast. Are your results going to be better by fasting this way rather than eating food all day? Well, yes, your results are going to be better. Do we care if it really means we broke our fast if our results are better?
Right. Okay.
So I tell
That makes
people,
total sense.
fast the way that makes sense to you. If you cut your food consumption in half for 48 hours, there would be a benefit to that. Are you fasting? Not even close. But it works, and there are benefits. So
Yep.
we should spend less time arguing about the technical definition of the word, because technically anything with a calorie broke your fast.
Okay. That makes sense.
But
Okay.
but
Well, I really
do what
appreciate
works for you.
the channel and everything.
Good.
Let me ask you this while we're talking about nuts. How do you feel about cashews?
I eat a little bit of all nuts. I mean,
Okay.
any nut is fine. Same with seeds. Moderation this is one of those areas where we actually talk about moderation. And that's unusual. When we're talking about meat or fish or, dairy or eggs, or I don't care about moderation. Eat as much as you want. Your body will regulate how much of those foods you eat. Nuts are one of those weird things. There are some problems with them, so we don't want to overeat them. Cashews are one of the higher nuts in carbs, but if you're only eating a handful a day, big deal. But you can sit down to a pound of cashews and knock them out in no time. So I warn people, nuts and seeds are okay, but just be careful. They're really easy to overeat. And nuts and seeds also have a lot of lectins, phytates, and some oxalates. No, none of those things are good for us. So we don't want to overdo those.
So that one doctor that's always on social media says those lectins hurt your intestines.
They do. Lectins hurt a
and
lot of
cause-
things. Yeah. So we want to moderate those. Here's the interesting thing, and this is why we talk about true carnivore, or as close to carnivore as we can get, works so well, because almost all plant foods have some issues. There's something about almost every plant food that isn't necessarily good for us. And some of them are really bad. Some of the foods with oxalates in them. This was interesting. So when we talk about oxalates, we did a whole mini series, 3 shows on oxalates. One of the things that I was doing during my vacation, I have so much wood. Both of my properties are all wood, real wood siding. I have cedar on this house, pine on the other house, all real wood decks. Some of them are Ipe hardwood, some of them are cedar, and it requires a lot of maintenance. You got to strip them, and I don't put any like stain on them. I only oil them. So after a while, the oil wears off. They start to go gray. So then you pressure wash them, and I use this thing called a brightener. And after you pressure wash them, you put this brightener on. You let it sit for 15 or 20 minutes. You rinse it off. The wood looks brand new. I mean, it strips all the dark color and all the tannins right out of the wood, and it looks like a brand new piece of raw wood. You know what that stuff is? It's pure oxalic acid. That's what we have to be careful of, because some foods are really high in oxalates and they're not good for us at all. And most people on the standard American diet are so overloaded with oxalates that it can take 4 to 5 years to clear them out of your body.
Wow. Do you remember that console that I had in my '89 Kenworth by the shifter?
Yes.
in front of the shifter.
Yeah.
That was perfect for holding food.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the one thing about a W9 or a 379, 389. That passenger seat is so close, you can just
reach
have
it.
bags of food right there.
Yeah.
And you can just reach them.
That's the
And
one you have to be careful of.
and it is subconscious. If you sit in a bar and have your chicken wings and a beer or so, and you watch, especially a bar that allows smoking. And let's say this particular bar is in Saxonburg. It's now shut down, but it was a horseshoe bar. And I was in there several years ago, and people were smoking and drinking. And the person on the far right, on the right leg of the horseshoe, would pick up their cigarette, take a puff, or pick up their glass, take a drink. And the person beside them subconsciously would do the same. And it would just go all the way around this horseshoe bar. And so Debbie likes to have tea in the car when we're driving. And so now I constantly always have tea or water in the vehicle. And I'm driving, and you know, out of the corner of your eye, I'll see her pick up her glass.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I reach for my Yeti cup to take my sip, even though I'm not thirsty.
Right.
So it's that subconscious mind that sees that. And the same thing happens when there's food. And you know, when we were kids, we didn't have family rooms. We had living rooms, and living rooms weren't right beside the kitchen. Now you have the kitchen part of the family room where everybody watches television.
Yeah.
So at nighttime, when you sit down to watch television, you eat.
Yep.
Because it's just right there.
But you know how I know this has nothing whatsoever to do with hunger or that our body needs nutrition? Like I said, virtually every day on my vacation, I was doing physical labor. I cleared a ton of land. I did all kinds of heavy pruning, and I was in the garden and doing the decks and power washing and re-oiling. And so I was active from morning till night. And most days I would have to stop and try to remember if I ate at all. Because I get up and I'll get up early. I start with the coffee, and it's got butter and oil in it. So that satisfies my appetite, and I have tons of energy. And 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, I'll have to stop and think, did I eat anything at all today? And many days I hadn't eaten yet. And if I was busy, I wouldn't eat until I stopped. Now, on days where I have to do reading and research and I'm just sitting still, I feel like I'm hungry all day long, but I'm not.
Right.
Why do I keep getting up and going to get something to eat? If I stay active, I don't do that.
You're exactly correct. By the way, I just saw you on Facebook here while you're talking to us.
Yeah, see, there you go. We live stream on 6 different platforms every day. Pretty soon, we are going to get it set up so we could get you guys in on the live video too. We're still working on that.
And there, Lisa put a picture of Mount Hood.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, there you are.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
So I can watch you talking to us.
You can. Like I say, we're
Okay.
working on getting the guest in here on this. Just a little complicated right now. Let's.
So walnuts are actually better than cashews to eat. They just don't. You have to put salt on them though. I got a salt cat. Walnuts.
Walnuts do need something, but walnuts are one of the better nuts for a couple reasons. They're a little lower in carbs, and they have more omega-3, which is better for us than omega-6. Most nuts are high in omega-6. Walnuts at least have some balance of omega-3. So walnuts, and you know what your best bet is for nuts? Now, you got to be prepared for sticker shock too, because they're probably $30 a pound these days. Macadamia nuts. That's your best bet.
Macadamia.
They're really high in
What's
fat.
those white almonds that you get at Whole Foods that are oily and salty?
Oh, yeah. I'll think of the name here in a second. They're from Spain. It's just a specific variety of.
And then I put more
with an
Redmond
M,
salt on them.
Starts with an M.
Marconi?
Marconi? Yeah, I think they're Marconi almonds. I love those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah, they're really good. And you're right, with a lot of salt.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you don't salt your food, you find out that sometimes you almost feel like the body needs a little salt. And a handful of cashews seem to satisfy that.
One of the things you really find when you stop eating all the processed food and you're eating more just kind of ingredients, not, processed food. Processed food's all loaded with salt, and it's all garbage salt. It's the worst form. When you start eating more whole food, a lot of times we find people are not coming anywhere near the amount of salt they should be getting because they're not used to salting their food much because most processed food's so heavily salted already. But if you're eating real whole food, you should be using a lot of salt.
I was getting a deep tissue massage several years ago, and the lady was pretty sharp. She said, "You don't salt your food, do you?" I said, "No." She said, "Your body is deficient of salt.
You know how she
You
knew?
need to stop at Whole Foods." And I don't know how she knew that, but she could tell.
Yeah. The biggest indicator is that you're almost always chronically dehydrated if you don't have enough salt too. And she could tell doing the massage, you can tell somebody's dehydrated. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know
So
what's crazy?
last week I sent you a link to these LifeWave patches that I'm wearing, that Shanna Gray is wearing, and Ray Mass from Mass Services in Appany's wearing. Did you get a chance to look at it at all?
I was on vacation, so I didn't look at anything, but I've got the link I'm going to. The other thing that you brought up, it's been a while now. I'm never sure if I'm saying this word right. Fenbendazole?
Fenbendazole.
Fenbendazole, yeah. That there are story after story after story. And there's another one that starts with an M and ends in the same.
Menbenzidol. I just read about it the other day for killing cancer.
Yeah, some of these stories are incredible.
Yes, they are. Scott, that does the show that had the stage 4 pancreatic cancer, that does the truck show in South Dakota that Shauna's part of. He was at her shop the other day, and he's on the fenbenzidol and the patches. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I had another comment. No,
I wish I could have got Pete Sharp to do some of that, but his doctor was against it.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on that. All right. We'll get back to the calls. Maybe I'll remember what. Mike in Missouri, what's on your mind today?
Hey, morning, guys. Just a second opinion on your earlier caller about the fuel dilution. Back in this was back in April of 23, and if the flashpoint was out, I wasn't aware of it, but I used the everyday treatment, and I've since swapped over and still having the same results. But I had a fuel dilution come in at 3.6, with nothing crazy, but it had always hovered around 1.5 to 2, and did nothing but started running the additive, and the next sample it dropped to a 1.4, almost the exact same miles on the oil. And since using the flashpoint, it's still the same.
I think what we're learning here is that diesel fuel is very poor quality, and we've got to put stuff in it to make it burn better. And that's what's eliminating this fuel dilution.
Yeah, it was my local mechanic, really smart guy, and he recommended it. He thought maybe lubing the O-rings might help, and apparently whatever it was, it worked. So, and that was I'm at about 200,000 miles more than that sample now. Not quite 200. It's been a long time, and it stayed down.
Well, we learned a lot from Dr. Jane Gates whenever I met her in Louisville. And look what we've learned since 2018 about diesel fuel through her.
Did she develop the flashpoint also?
No, that's another chemist that I've known for 40 some years. Kevin talks about building relationships. And I used some of his products over the years, especially in the winter. And I sent him some of the max mileage, and I said, make me a cetane improver that's compatible with our max mileage. And he went to work back in his lab, and the result was the Flashpoint.
Okay. The combos seem to work great. Keep it up.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Texas. Deshaun, welcome.
Yes, hello.
Yep. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Kevin, I'm calling to speak to your Eric about that sample. I wonder if Angie sent it over to you.
Yeah. So this one might be a little confusing. Eric, do you have this one?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Are you adding any coolant, Deshaun?
I am adding some coolant. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Then that clears
It's
things
getting
up.
in you. Yeah, your sodium, potassium, and molybdenum have all risen slightly, but they're all like in parallel with the same proportion. So that makes sense that there's getting a little bit of coolant into the oil.
But it's not.
Yeah, that's
a
why I'm
lot yet.
calling.
Yeah, it's a little bit, but it's getting in there.
I have no idea where it's coming from. I did all the little troubleshooting with the block. I mean, not the block, but the head and maybe a head gasket with the bubble test and a couple of other things. I've tried little troubleshooting things, but I'm not seeing any of those. So I'm just wondering how could it be the air compressor?
Well, the air compressor can leach out. It's actually going to put compression in the cooling system, which can be confused from getting coolant in the oil. But there are both liquids going through the actual housing, so it could be like an internal fracture somewhere. Not typically is what I see, though. I usually see if it's an air compressor issue, it's usually just putting pressure in the cooling system and then bubbling over, and people automatically assume it's a head gasket. With what you have going on here, is this in your Caterpillar, Deshaun?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It would take us less than an hour to determine if it was the air compressor or not. If you want to bring it in, we can do a funnel test on the cooling system, make sure that there is compression getting in there, and then we can bypass the air compressor to completely eliminate it out of the equation, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, that was my next step, Eric. I was going to get with you about trying to get in here later this month when I can make it up there, because I needed to get an overhead done on it too. So what you're seeing now on that sample, this is the first time I've been sampling in a while that I ever seen. But I knew it when I saw it what it was, because I done heard Kevin talk about it many times, potassium and sodium. On that sample, it did rise on that next one quite a bit. So is it something I can run with, change the oil until I can get up there in a couple of weeks, or is it?
I think so. I mean, I don't see it being that severe of a level just yet. It just got flagged on the potassium. Sodium didn't even get flagged yet.
Right.
How much coolant are you adding, though? Like how many miles to how much coolant?
Here recently, I've been putting in a gallon, like maybe 35, 38, somewhere in there, 100 miles.
100 miles?
So
That seems
Maybe
like a
once a
lot.
month, actually.
Wait. You're only running 4,000 miles a month?
Yeah, I'm not. I do a lot of heavy haul, so I ain't really running
Okay.
that many miles.
Okay.
That
So
seems
yeah,
like
I'm running out to Utah and back.
that
once
seems
or
like
twice a
more
month.
coolant than I would have expected this to be.
Me too. Based on the numbers on this oil sample, I would that's just minor, but that seems a little bit more.
So now we have to go back to the whole troubleshooting thing and what you guys were talking about earlier. There might be two problems. You might have a hot water leak under pressure. So while you're running down the road, you're leaking coolant out of the whole system somewhere, and you're getting some coolant into the oil.
Yeah, I found the hot water leak, Kevin. I fixed that myself. So I was
Okay.
able to find that one.
Okay.
And but this one just recently happened within the last month or two.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see both samples there or not.
Let me go back to that.
Maybe she just sent you the recent one. Well, it should still be on there though.
Here, so I'm looking back. Yeah, the last two, you can see a gradual progression.
Right. So so that tells us the story. You did have a hot water leak. You found it. That's fixed. Your coolant consumption should probably go down now, unless this problem starts to get worse.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I hope it's not getting worse, but with that second sample, it looked like it's getting worse.
It is, but it's still low. I mean, typically we don't really notice a lot of coolant loss until these numbers get up around the 200s.
Okay, got you. Okay. Well, still, should I change this oil or keep running it?
I don't see. I mean, let me check viscosity again real quick.
Everything else looks off kilt here. Everything else looks pretty good.
Yeah, viscosity seems fine. I don't see that little bit of coolant, wear metals did not go up at all. Right now, that little bit of coolant is not causing any issues, so I wouldn't change this oil.
Okay, so don't change it. Probably sample it a little sooner, or I can just run it a couple weeks to air get me in up there.
I'd just run it a couple weeks. You'll be fine.
All righty.
All right.
Well, that's all I had today, guys. Was just that sample. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for the call. Hey, Eric, you may have taught me something today.
What's that?
Well, first I'm going to help you. It's molybdenum.
Oh, thank you.
I had to practice saying that word over and over and over because I could not get molybdenum. I could never get that one right. I didn't know that increased with coolant.
It will. Yeah, it's one of the byproducts of coolant.
How did I not notice that? You know why I didn't notice that? Because I ignore most of those additive metals because there are some oils that don't have moly in them at all.
Exactly.
And then some that have a ton. It's a friction modifier, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually placed the rings, friction modifier. It can be an additive in an oil, and it can be grease contamination, but it also is molybdates from some coolants as well.
Molybdenum.
Yeah, aluminium.
Molybdenum.
Okay, I learned something today. I like that. All right, let's go to Nevada. Darren, welcome.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, gentlemen from Pittsburgh Power.
What's on your mind today?
I have a question regarding, is a AirDog similar to a fast system? And if so, what are the differences and which one would be recommended for a 2021 Freightliner DD15?
We're probably partial to fast because we're their master distributor. AirDog is a different approach. They used to rely on running just a mechanical setup and not an electric, and I believe they're running electric now along with their mechanicals, or maybe they phased out all their mechanicals. I'm not 100% sure, but we've had really good luck with fast. We've had a really good relationship with Brad over the last 20, 30 years. I mean, it's been a long time. We've been using them, and like I said, we're their only master distributor, but we would highly recommend fast fuel pump on them. They seem to work out really well. We put them on DD15s, we put them on X15s, DD13s, the older Series 60s, Caterpillars. You know, we put them on every engine available out there over the years.
Okay. The other question I had is, I know about the Hawkeye report, but I heard something about new to me service you have. What are the difference of those two?
Well, the Hawkeye report is where one of our mechanics goes out, or technicians, I'm sorry, they go out with a clipboard, and it's basically like a checkpoint list where they go.
That one I understand. Yeah.
So the new to me is,
Doesn't it just include a Hawkeye? Isn't that just one of the things we do?
yeah, it's kind of like a compounded order. It's going to be a Hawkeye report. It's going to be a dyno session with a manometer to let you know what the power and torque is to the ground, along with how much blow by you're getting on the breather tube.
ECM report.
Yeah, ECM report. I think, is that it? I think that's it. Yeah, just those 3 big ticket items there. It's going to go through, but it's basically like a full blown health report. Like if you go to your doctor just for a general checkup or physical, that's one part. But if you go in for like a stress test, physical, blood work, panels, all that stuff, that's kind of like what the new to me is, because we're trying to find a history of something you don't have the history of. So we're going to do every kind of detective work we can, every test, boost test, check for codes, the ECM report. We're going to go through everything and try to figure out what this truck has been telling, what story it has to tell. And then you can get a better.
The Hawkeye, right?
Yeah, exactly. It includes a Hawkeye.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's what I will want to get once I get my truck. I also have a question about the max mileage and the flash point. From my understanding, I heard on a previous episode, the max mileage will completely disperse into the fuel tank. It doesn't have to be shaken or anything like that.
That is correct.
Right. Is the flash point the same thing?
It is, yes.
Okay, so and if I mix those 2 in a bottle or later on when I get going, I can just pour it in. I don't have to shake the bottle up or anything before I put it in.
It's always a good idea.
I shake everything. I even shake ketchup.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
When you have several chemicals together and it's just sitting there, they're eventually going to settle out. So shake the catalyst, shake the flash point.
Yeah.
I shake. Do you ever look at a bottle of orange juice and see how it settles?
Oh yes. Yeah.
So.
But if you're saying if you dump it into the diesel, it disperses completely and doesn't settle?
No,
no.
Once 1 ounce of 25 gallon, once it mixes with the diesel, it's mixed. It doesn't fall out of the fuel and sit in the bottom of the tank.
Okay, I'm curious about something that I used to work with the LTL, a big one, and they had their own fuel tanks. Wouldn't it make sense for them to put max mileage and flashpoint into their diesel tanks? Because drivers would never add it.
Of course it would.
That's right.
Do any of them do it? Have you ever heard of anyone doing that?
Yeah, we've got several people with their own fuel tanks, and when that fuel tank's above the ground and that sun's shining on it, I've asked Dr. Jane, I said, does it have an extra catalytic effect? And she doesn't think so, but well, I'll tell you the results you get back when people have above ground fuel tanks and they're in the sun, it seems to even multiply the effects of the catalyst.
Oh, it even works better. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I was just curious about those things. Well, thanks very much, gentlemen, and I'll keep listening.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's go.
Hey, I also wanted to say,
go ahead.
Adam that does the Hawkeye report is also our guy that does the MD alignments. So when he's doing an MD alignment, he'll point out a lot of things that he sees wrong because he's right down there in the suspensions.
All right. Let's go to Tennessee. Zach, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. You guys, Bruce asked about cashews, and you said that the body regulates, but there's a supplement you can do. What you want to do when you're eating cashews is have at least an adequate amount, if not an excessive amount, of Breyer's vanilla bean ice cream and Hershey's chocolate syrup in the same bowl with the cashews, and then that will help you not to overeat the cashews.
There you go.
Yes, there you go.
But I was calling these patches that I keep hearing Bruce talk about. What are these patches? How do I find out about them?
Oh, why don't you just call me after the show and we'll talk about it, because Kevin hasn't researched them yet. So I'm waiting for Kevin to research them and try them.
I am working on
it. A quick question. They're not like hemp or CBD or something like that we couldn't use as truck drivers anyway, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Very good.
There's no.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. I will do that research. I promise. Let's
Okay.
let's get to Illinois. Nick, welcome to the program.
Hey, I've got a reman Caterpillar 2WS reman from Caterpillar directly. When I let the RPMs get up pretty high, around 2,000, pulling a hill or doing hot rodding it or whatever, it'll go through oil. Does a lot better when you let the oil level get low down to the bottom of the range. Question is, how low do you feel you can go without risking anything?
So let me ask you a question. Usually on the cats, we tell people if you're going to pull the hill when you're running hard, 16, 1700 should be plenty. Why are you up at 2000?
You know, when you get in a sticky situation where you need to get by somebody, and
Okay.
you know, it's only occasionally. It's definitely not.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you on this
And I
reman
will say
cat?
the issue got a lot better after I ran the overhead, but it still does it some.
Yeah. What weight oil are you running?
1545, 1540.
Good. Okay. In 10,000 miles after an oil change, how many gallon are you putting in?
If I don't run into any hills and, you know, get on it, probably a gallon in 10,000.
Okay. And on the worst case, how many?
Oh, I don't know. It just seems like if I get into it, if I check the oil the next day, it's gone down. So I don't know. It just all depends on how I drive it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, you see it on the. I've got full wrap fenders, and you'll see it on the fenders. And I do have your catch can, but it's still
The oil trap?
it'll get by there. Yeah.
Yeah. Does this have a factory tune in it, and does it have a factory turbo?
Well, it did, and then I recently did put a turbo and a tune on it, and yeah, it has got worse since I did that.
Okay.
How many
Is
miles?
it our tune?
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
it's a PDI tune.
Oh. Oh well, what can I say? I don't have any more comments.
Well, full disclosure, I tried to go to you, but I've got one of your damned Nebraska trucks with a cat motor, and I talked to Eric, and he said you guys don't want to work on it. So I understand, but I ended up going PDI because I couldn't get you guys to work on it. So.
Uh-oh. Okay. We're gonna have to discuss that.
Okay. What's your thought on the oil level as far as how low can you safely go without, you know, being scared of any issues?
I usually, from the race car days, we ran a little bit higher, so I don't ever run low oil pressure.
Not the pressure, just the level and the.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can. Yeah. Okay.
You know,
I mean, once it gets down to the bottom line, it kind of seems to level off a little bit, but
the best
we
practice.
have a client with the same engine as you, and he had lost his head gaskets around 220,000 miles. Lost the head gasket, and the liner protrusion is down around 3,000. And so, I'm just wondering, have you had any head gasket issues with yours?
No, it's only got 175,000 on it. But no, I've not had any issues yet.
Okay.
So what I've
Well,
found
if you do, make sure they check the liner protrusion.
Right.
What I've found on that oil level, the bottom line is usually a gallon, and I've seen many trucks where if you fill half a gallon at a time, like don't let it get if you don't let it get all the way down to the gallon mark and you put in a half gallon at a time, it tends to burn more oil. If you let it get down to the gallon, and as soon as it gets down to that bottom line, I put a gallon in. even a little before, and you might be a little higher, but I really don't want it going much beyond that gallon mark, but I don't want to put it in sooner than that mark either.
Okay.
I mean, I've looked
All
at
right.
enough oil
Well,
samples that you don't see wear metals increase when people are running, right down to the gallon mark and then adding a gallon at a time. You don't see any increased wear metals or any real issues. So I wouldn't let it go lower than that, but I wouldn't fill it before that either.
yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. That's all.
All right. That's going to do it for the calls today. And I've got a CMC this afternoon, so I need to go get prepared for that. Anybody have anything they want to close with?
No, Kevin, I like this watching you talk, though, on my computer while we're doing the show.
Yeah, we've had a really, I didn't realize it. There's also a chat. So that live stream is going out on 6 different platforms. It's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on LinkedIn, it's on X, it's on Instagram, Rumble, I think. And there's a chat feature. And some days I pay attention to the chat and I try to ask questions, especially when I've got, you guys on and I can take time. There was like 20 questions in there this morning. I didn't even see them. So I wasn't paying attention. But the live stream's really been bringing in a lot of new people.
You had that little chest, and right above it, there's an empty wall, and there should be a Pittsburgh Power logo on that.
Well, send me one.
Also, there should be a Pittsburgh Power shirt on you.
Well, today, normally on Tuesdays, I do try to wear a Pittsburgh Power shirt. But today I was kind of in a hurry, so I grabbed what was ever on the top. And today it just happens to be Alignment Solutions, which was Chad out in Kansas City. But normally you need to send me some more Pittsburgh Power shirts.
Okay.
Do you recognize the Fox?
I was looking at that. Is that the one from Colorado?
It is. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stories with the Fox. That's the one that was...
That's the one that Lisa used to feed while we were doing the 3-hour shows on Saturday and Sunday.
Well, it's not the real one she used to feed. Hopefully that one's still alive somewhere. This one I inherited when I went out there and I was working with ATBS. They gave me that cabin for a year up in the mountains, and it was just beautiful. But this had been left in the cabin by the previous occupant, and I knew him, and he said, just keep it. And we kind of, Lisa would play around with it. I can't tell you how many times, like I'd get up early in the morning and stumble into the shower, and she had put the Fox in the shower. And it's so real looking that can startle you, but the Fox has a lot of stories.
Interesting. Does Diesel, did he first think it was alive?
Yeah, it took him a little while. And one time the neighbors came over and they had their dog here, and the dogs are all running around the house. We weren't really paying attention to them. And we went upstairs and the neighbor's dog had mounted the Fox.
Okay.
Yeah, there's...
All right.
Yeah, we won't tell Fox stories because there's lots of them. We're going to wrap it up for today. We will see you back here next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, give them a call at Pittsburgh Power. Thanks to the team as always. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Destination Health. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.